And with that, let's jump into love-hate, what kept Matthew up all night and into the morning. We start with the running backs, and we start with Kyren Williams, the volume king. What a year it's been for Kyren Williams. And Matthew, quite simply, he has your Commanders on deck in Week 15.
Yeah, you love that unless you're a fan of the team like I am. Look, love-hate is all about exceeding expectations. And I know a lot of people start Kyren Williams against the Commanders. Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Captain Obvious. He's on the love list because he's my number 2 running back this week, right? Only Chris McCaffrey comes in higher in my ranks. This is somebody that in the 3 games since he was returning, averaging basically 25 touches a game. He's got a 15% target share. He's had 12 different touches in those 3 games, 12 different touches in goal-to-go situations. And over the last 4 weeks, my Commanders allow 33.7 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. That is the most in the National Football League.
I think the thing with Kyren Williams too is that it's not just anymore just about the volume. He's just an elite, awesome running back. I think he's a top 10 running back in the league on talent. And a lot of his numbers have been propped up by just eviscerating the Cardinals twice. But now he did it against the Ravens. He lit up the Ravens and he's at 5.0 yards per carry on the season. He's just the superstar.
Yeah, and I think it's nice that, kind of something you hinted at there, Matthew, is he's a goal line back. He's effectively, for a smaller guy, they don't pivot to somebody else. They don't have a running quarterback, so it's all there for Kyren Williams. Our next one.
He's kind of Connor Rogers-esque.
Yeah, you keep him on the desk even,
Yeah, smaller guy, but we don't pivot to somebody else.
No.
We keep you in all situations.
I can handle the workload.
You can indeed.
Yes.
Yesterday, a lot of people should we bring you in for somebody else in for the third segment? No. He can close it out. That's absolutely right.
Yesterday, Sim's show, I walked right to the studio and did this show.
There you go.
Workhorse back.
Yeah. Workhorse
30
back.
touches.
Yeah.
30 touches.
We
Absolutely.
don't bring Ahmed Fareed in for segment 3.
No, you literally don't.
100%. And Sims goes long.
We did 2 hours.
Did you? I bet.
Yeah, we did 2 hours.
Yeah, Sims can just talk and talk and talk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
we were rocking. I had about 3 hours of football talk straight yesterday here at NBC.
Look at that.
No food, no water.
Yeah, he's not.
No bathroom break.
It's unbelievable. You're
That's
a
why you got the
workhorse.
electrolyte drink
That's
here.
it. That's it.
You're a machine.
That's it.
Yeah, you're a young Kyren Williams out there.
All right. Benjon Robinson up next. Another running back that makes the top 5 here, Barry. It's like Arthur Smith remembered. He drafted Benjon Robinson with a top 10 pick, and he's got the Panthers. I feel like every running back that's had the Panthers this year shows up in some capacity on the love list.
Now, Arthur Smith getting cute in the fantasy playoffs against the Panthers would be the most Arthur Smith thing ever. But yes, I'm a believer in Arthur Smith at least getting out of his own way and giving the ball to number 7, a guy that was drafted high and rightfully so. The early season, what are you doing, has been corrected. Over the last 4 games, he's averaging almost 20 touches per game. This is Benjon Robinson, of course. He's playing 73% of the snaps. We like that as well. Running backs who see, get this, at least 15 touches against the Carolina Panthers are averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. And to your point, Connor, 11 of the 12 running backs that have seen at least 15 touches against the Carolina Panthers have scored a touchdown. So Benjon Robinson is my number 5 running back. He's a top 5 play for me this week on the road at Carolina. This is an important game for the Falcons.
Yeah, and I think the key is just that the Panthers have by far the worst run defense in the NFL, and they actually have an above-average pass defense. And so if Arthur Smith ever needed an excuse to run the ball, it's this weekend. So after what Desmond Ridder has shown with his inconsistency, you would expect them to lean on the run.
Our next one, Jay, Ezekiel Elliott comes in as RB8 for Matthew. We saw Zeke finish as RB1 last week with a huge Thursday Night Football performance. And not only did Zeke look good on the ground, Jay, but Bailey Zappi will check it down to him over and over again in the flats.
I think that's the key. And it's not so much the rushing, where he didn't really do much on the ground despite the 22 carries. Against Pittsburgh, it was the fact he had 8 targets and 7 receptions. The week before against the Chargers, 5 targets and 4 receptions. So I think that particularly in PPR leagues, Zeke is just a monster in this offense at the moment.
Yeah, in the year of our Lord 2023, Ezekiel Elliott is a top 10 fantasy running back as we head into the fantasy playoffs. You mentioned no Ramondre Stevenson. He should get a ton of work. He literally, as you see it there, he played 91% of the snaps, and no other running back touched the ball. 100% of the running back touches for the Patriots last Thursday went to Ezekiel Elliott. We don't expect Ramondre to play again. It should be another massive workload for Zeke against the Chiefs, I should say, 2 of the last 3 running backs that faced Kansas City had over 100 yards from scrimmage. So just volume gets you there with Zeke, especially, by the way, he's being used in the passing attack. Like, this is something that we haven't seen a lot of this year, but Bailey Zappi wasn't scared to involve him. They also had a lot of injuries on the wide receiver front. No Demario Douglas or Devontae Parker last week. We'll see about the statuses of them. But even if both guys go this weekend, dumping off, especially when you got Chris Jones bearing out on you, dumping off to Zeke makes a lot of sense.
The other thing, too, is that you might think, going up against Bailey Zappi against Patrick Mahomes, game script will just destroy them in terms of being able to run the ball. Line's only 7.5.
Yeah.
Which makes me feel like America has failed. The fact that Patrick Mahomes is in such a state where he's only a 7.5 point favorite over Bailey Zappi.
America hasn't failed. I will tell you who has actually failed in all seriousness. The front office of the Kansas City Chiefs.
It's Brett Veach.
Yeah. You've got literally a generational quarterback.
Yep.
And, at some point, like roosters come home to roost or whatever. Pick your cliche, but you can't keep getting away with this. Like, hey, these kind of generic guys out there. Like, you guys counted on Kadarius Toney. That was a mistake. You counted on MVS. That was a mistake. That was ignoring all the existing tape on either guy. Coming into, hindsight's easy to 2020, and we all like but they expected Sky Moore to develop, and he hasn't, and just there's only so much Travis Kelce. It feels like they hit on something with Rashee Rice, but other than that, there's not enough depth for literally the best quarterback on the planet.
Yep. Little fun game to play while you're watching Chiefs games. Just look at how often Patrick Mahomes has to tell his receivers where to line up because they're in the wrong spot. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and he forgot to tell Kadarius Toney where to line up, and that cost him the game. So.
Yeah, they did. And I don't know if you, I'm sorry, we'll get off, but I'll just say this. Go watch, Dan Orlovsky did a video, it's like on YouTube over there at ESPN. He did a whole thing where he broke down, he noticed that Kadarius Toney had actually lined up offsides multiple times throughout the game. And so there's a couple different ways to look at that, which is number one is they didn't call it any of the other previous times, so he sort of thought about that. But there's also Kadarius Toney, it's not like it was like.
Why are you doing this?
At some point, coaches need to notice that and say, hey, get back.
Right.
And have you seen any of the memes of and just people have taken Kadarius Toney and placed him,
15 yards offside.
right, literally in between the linebackers on the other side. It's so
good content.
The internet remains undefeated.
Some others receiving votes from the running backs. Raheem Mostert comes in as RB13 against the Jets. Derrick Henry against Houston, and it's weird. The Titans will be wearing Oilers uniforms against Houston in this game. He comes in as a top 20 play. DeAndre Swift against the Seahawks, RB20. Ty Chandler if Alexander Madison is out, and we're leaning towards that he might be. Jerome Ford against the Bears, RB32 there, Matthew.
Yeah, I'll go just backwards to forwards in terms of Ford. He's had 5 targets or more in 3 of the past 4 games. No team in the NFL allows more receiving yards to running backs than the Chicago Bears. We like Chandler, as we talked about here. I think Swift gets back on track against Seattle, as they've allowed over 135 rushing yards to running backs in 3 straight. Death taxes start Derrick Henry against the Texans. He literally has over 1,000 yards combined in his last 5 against the Texans, including 10 touchdowns. He averages 33 fantasy points per game against the Texans. And Raheem must start, especially if Achane is going to be. He had 2 touchdowns the last time he faced the Jets. He should get another heavy workload this weekend.
Jay, anyone from that list that jumps out to you?
Yeah, I think Raheem Mostert, just with the Jets and how dominant they've been as a pass defense, and the fact that the Dolphins, their offensive line, too, is going to have to be throwing the ball very quickly. Yeah. And the Jets, the Dolphins did have some success running the ball against them last time, and particularly if Achane is out, then Mostert becomes a monster.
Yeah. We move over to the hate list, which is headlined basically by Kansas City's backfield right here. Isaiah Pacheco or Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think the crux of this, Matthew, is whatever Chiefs running back is healthy and starting against the Patriots, avoid.
Yeah, correct. They're on the road at New England, and over the last 4 weeks, the Patriots allowing just 11.3 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. That is the lowest in the NFL. They also allow 42 rushing yards and 2.4 yards per carry to running backs. That is also lowest in the NFL. They have a really good run defense. No running back in the last 4 weeks has scored more than 8 fantasy points against the Patriots, and you're like, who'd they face? How about Austin Eckler or Saquon Barkley? Your boy Najee Harris, Jay, and Jaylen Warren. None of them was able to even get to double-digit fantasy points. None of them were even able to get to 9 fantasy points against the Patriots. So whether it is a not 100% healthy Isaiah Pacheco or CEH, who has been inconsistent during his career and will be splitting time with Jerick McKinnon, whoever one of those starting running backs are, splitting time with the passing down back McKinnon, makes the hate list.
Patriots have the best run defense in the NFL right now. And so Patrick Mahomes, his passing yards prop is set at 248.5 on DraftKings. I think that might be 50 yards too low, to be honest. This is the ultimate pass funnel defense. And with how their running backs have struggled, I think Mahomes, he will be throwing a lot.
How about Kenneth Walker here, Jay? He's just not getting the snap count that you would hope from an RB1. I'm sure it has to do with the fact he's been banged up this year, and the Eagles have been able to limit running backs on the ground.
Yep, and it's a tough matchup here with the Eagles. They have a strong run defense. Their corners have struggled all year, and with Metcalf, Lockett, JSN, you expect that Seattle will be throwing. Zach Charbonnet out-carried Kenneth Walker. Now, the positive for Kenneth Walker is he had 5 targets in the passing game. Charbonnet only had 1, and they are dogs in this game, so you'd expect them potentially to be trailing. But you just cannot feel good about a team that is an underdog with a guy who is in a 50-50 timeshare.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough matchup against Philly as well. Literally, this entire year, there have only been 2 running backs that have more than 60 rushing yards against the Eagles as well. He's had 12 or fewer touches in 3 of his last 4 healthy games. To your point, he's splitting time with Charbonnet. They're underdogs. The way you attack Philadelphia is through the air. We do kind of like Geno in this one. I like DK Metcalf as a top 10 play this week. But again, with Kenneth Walker, you're hoping for one big play, and he's got that ability. But other than that, I don't know. Like, he's outside my top 20 this week.
Our last one here, Matthew, Javonte Williams. People might see Detroit and think, okay, I like that. But the reality is Detroit is so bad against the pass that running backs haven't had massive days against their front this year.
Yeah, over the last 4 weeks, Detroit's allowing just 3.3 yards per carry. In fact, no running back has rushed for more than 51 yards against Detroit. And they allow the 4th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. If there's one positive here for Javonte Williams, the usage has really been there. It's really nice usage for Javonte Williams. I think he's got a shot at a touchdown. So he's a borderline top 20 play, but this is a tough matchup, so he makes the hate list because, again, I'm lowering expectations. I would still I have Javonte Williams in a couple leagues. I'm starting him in those leagues, but I would lower expectations for Javonte Williams. He's just outside my top 20 this week.
Yep, and also Detroit, their weakness is in the secondary. That's where they've been exploited time and time again, so you'd expect that Russ will be throwing.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.